Preston Bell Charles III. Thank you, Preston. Good evening, everybody. My name is David Levy. I'm a Thank you so much. I appreciate your support. I am a co-founder of True Theater, and if you're here in the audience tonight, you know this already, but for anybody watching from home, I'm standing on stage at Memorial Hall in downtown Cincinnati, Ohio. It was our home for 2.5 seasons before COVID closed us down. It was a much more difficult time for everybody else than it was for us. I mean, like, let's get that straight. We transitioned immediately to doing our shows online. It is not the same experience as having you in front of us today. I'm so grateful for you all to come out tonight. Our audiences were a little bigger pre-COVID, but we are going to now start building up that momentum. So thank you all so much for coming tonight and for joining us from home. The 8 shows that we did, by the way, it wasn't just that we continue to produce shows, but for the storytellers who put in just as much work as as the storytellers who are telling your stories tonight, and then to do it for not a live audience, but to just say it into their camera on their computer was such a, we're just so grateful for all that they did without getting that sort of audience feedback. I don't know if all these names up here were people who told stories over the past 18 months for True Theater shows, and I just want a big round of applause for all of them tonight. You're actually going to hear from a few of them tonight, and I'm really glad that they're going to have an opportunity to do it in front of a live audience. An interesting parallel between pre-COVID and whatever the hell you call this is that our last show that we did before COVID in January of 2020, the theme was shit, and we called the show True Shit, so already it's a PG-13 show, get that straight. That show was sponsored by Mest Comics. And tonight's show, our first show back in Memorial Hall, is also sponsored by Mest Comics. Yeah. Mest Comics is the brainchild of Jay Callagayan, who simultaneously wanted to create a comic where his own daughter could see herself represented, but also that answers the question, what is going on underneath the miles and depth of sewer pipe underneath our city. This does both of them. If you notice the MSD and MEST is capitalized for Metropolitan Sewer District, it is, quite literally a Cincinnati-based comic, and it's got 2 seasons out. The 3rd season is coming in December. You really should check it out, mestcomics.com. Thank you so much, Jay and MEST, for sponsoring tonight's show. Yeah. There's probably some flyers and information on it and some of the high top tables downstairs where you may have also seen a mask creation station going on. We're going to have a couple people come out a little bit later to explain some more about what that is. But if you didn't get to do it before the show, play around with the mask, there is an opportunity at intermission. Something else you could do at intermission, if you are here on a single ticket tonight, not a subscription holder, and you feel like, man, I missed out on getting a subscription, you can turn your single ticket into a subscription at intermission by visiting the box office. Just $51 will turn that 1 ticket into 4 tickets, and you'll get to join us for the rest of the season. And a little later on tonight, I'm going to tell you what the rest of that season is, the themes and the dates. But they're also very sort of like, I don't know what I'm doing in January. How can I commit to buying a subscription now? Well, there's a lot of flexibility here, and with a little notice, the box office is great. If you can't make it that night, you let them know ahead of time. Maybe move that ticket to the 3rd. It's all good. You know, basically what I'm saying is you want a subscription. So there's a couple things going on at intermission that you could do. If you're not here tonight and you're missing out on the opportunity to buy a subscription, if you want to buy a virtual ticket, by which I mean you just want to make a donation to True Theater, then that's very easy to do too. You can just go to truetheater.org /donate, and it's very easy to do from there. Remember, we spell theater the fancy way, ending in R-E. Or if you're the kind of person who likes texting, which who isn't really, you can text the code TRUE12, TRUE12, to the number 44321. You get a link back, and then it becomes very self-explanatory from there. So if you'd like to donate to help the cause, it really does a lot to help this transition back into coming back and doing live theater, in-person theater. Of course, we are live to you at home as well. But yeah, no amount is too small. Every little bit helps. Thank you in advance for your support. You know, every show we do here has a theme. Tonight's theme is nightmares. And if you came here tonight thinking that you're going to hear a lot of stories about ghosts and goblins and things that go bump in the night, that's not really what this is about, although one of the stories is a little bit about that. This is more, you know, everybody's got true personal stories from their lives, and these stories are largely about situations our storytellers were in, which after it was over, had them saying, man, that was a nightmare. And sometimes with time and perspective, it is funny. And sometimes it leaves our storytellers scratching their heads perplexed. And sometimes it's tragic. And you're going to get a little mess of all of that tonight. So just in case, again, you're thinking you're going to get stories about ghosts and goblins, that's not what tonight's show is about. Speaking of which, we have 5 storytellers tonight, and we always say here at True Theater, everybody has a story to tell, and the only difference between strangers and friends is the sharing of that story, and tonight you're going to make 5 new friends. The first of which is a family man, having overcome many hurdles as a husband and a father. Hurdles, his word, by the way. If you attended True Blue, you'll remember the gentleman with the blue hair, which he no longer has, for the same reason a lot of people don't own a boat. Too much upkeep, right? If you came and weathered a true storm, you'll know his wife is a jinx who makes it rain or worse every time they go camping. And if you joined us virtually last season for True Dog, you'll have met Peanut, his family Chihuahua, who delights in locking the car doors anytime he foolishly leaves the dog in the car with the keys. Here he is once again, ladies and gentlemen, Scot Howell.
(2020), the year of the COVID pandemic, was just as dreadful and as awful and as difficult for myself and my family as it was for everyone else. I had just the smallest little bit of silver lining, a little bit of bright light in that pandemic, that year of difficulty, and the fact that we found our forever house. We'd been shopping for a very long time by that point. We'd been shopping literally for about 5 years, And we were very diligent about it. We're very picky with what we wanted. But literally every single morning, my wife would start her day by checking the local MLS page for new listings. Our real estate agent, we'd grown very tight with, and she was looking for us for properties that were ready to go to market but not quite live yet. It's a great little trick to have in your back pocket, especially in the neighborhood we were looking in where things were just going so quick. Literally, houses, real estate was turning in 24 hours. If you weren't ready to go, you probably weren't going to get it. So we're very specific in what we wanted. It's got to have at least a 2-car garage. We're looking for at least 4 bedrooms. I have to have a wood-burning fireplace. My current house had that, and I just, that's the only thing I'm really asking for at this point. And had to be on a cul-de-sac, and had to have that neighborhood feel. Really wanted that neighborhood feel. That was very important to us, having 2 little girls at home. And time goes on, and we're searching, and our real estate agent calls one day, I think maybe in June, the end of June, and she says, "I found the greatest house ever. I think this could be the one. Meet me there at 4 o'clock." Normally she calls and says, "Hey, I think I found something. Do you want to go look at it?" Today we got a phone call with an insistence, "Here, meet me at this house. This is going to be great." She had been working with another real estate agent over this house, and she had booked it up all day, literally from 4 through 9:30 that night. Every 30 minutes, she's turning over more people looking at this property. So we meet there. We got lucky. We got the first slot. And with the COVID pandemic, you got to show up with the mask, and they insist on the rubber gloves. You can't just walk through and touch the house or anything. So we show up, and we start going through it. Unfortunately, it wasn't staged necessarily. It was lived in all the way up to and including the last 30 minutes before we got there. But that's fine. They had kids. I have kids. I get that. So we're looking past the stuff, and we're looking at the house, and it sure does look great. It sure feels right. It looks right. It feels right. Everything's good. And we're hustling through this house, and we're looking through it real quick. And it was amazing. It was literally, it checked off everything on our wish list. It even went beyond in some cases. It had 6 bedrooms. It had 4 bathrooms. It had 3 fireplaces. 2-car garage. It was amazing. It got this huge screened-in porch with its own built-in charcoal grill and chimney that exhausts up through the roof and everything. And it looks so cool, and big, nice, flat front yard, and the backyard's great. It's got a swing set and a tree house and a slide, and it's amazing. It's on a cul-de-sac that's at the end of like 3 other cul-de-sacs, so there's no traffic back there. Totally had that neighborhood feel. In fact, we knew 5 families already in this neighborhood through mutual friends for mutual neighbors and friends at our current house. Plus, it's the west side of Cincinnati, and for those who don't know, pretty much all the west siders know each other. I've learned being married to one for so long. It's a real thing. It's amazing. Diane called us at 1 o'clock. We looked at it at 4. We made a bid at 6:30, and at 9:30, we had our forever house. And I was excited then as I am now. I absolutely love this house. We'd worked so hard over the years. We took care of that little house that we had that we'd outgrown. And, whenever something broke, we fixed it. Whenever we could improve upon it, we did. And, we stayed through it with the economic collapse in 2008, where a lot of people walked away from their mortgage, and we stuck through it. We did the hard work, and now it's going to pay off, and we found our forever house, and it's absolutely amazing, and we're just so excited. I'm going to skip past a few other stories that would keep us here for about an hour with just me on stage, and let's just go straight to moving day. Moving day. So we had gotten there after 2 months because in the contract they'd asked for an additional 30 days to rent the house while their next property is being prepared. We agreed to that, no problem. So now we have 60 days to get boxes, bins, pack, be ready, know what we're going to do on moving day. And some of us, me included, followed that thought pattern. Not all of us did, as I found out. On moving day, I show up first thing in the morning as promised. I was communicating with the lady. The house, will call her Audrey. And, her and I are talking back and forth on social media the last couple weeks before we did this. And, I tell her I'll be there bright and early first thing in the morning. It'll be great. I'll bring donuts. Big old box of donuts from Benemini Bakery in Northside. It's the greatest bakery in all of Cincinnati, and you can fight me on that fact later if you choose to. And I show up. And, I get out of my minivan, and I'm all happy. I'm just so excited. Hey, good morning. How are you? It's great. It's moving day. I got donuts. And she doesn't share that happiness. She looks more fearful. She looks maybe even a bit upset. She had just dropped off her children at daycare, probably a good move. And as we walk into the house, she's telling me her husband's gone to work for the day. A little weird, but whatever. I'll just, forget I heard that odd thing. It's moving day. Where is he? Her mom's out running errands. But she apparently will be back because she lives in the basement. She's going to take care of her stuff while they take care of upstairs. So as we're walking into the house, she points to this little corner in the garage, maybe 4 foot by 4 foot. She said, "Hey, I made a spot for you to move your stuff in from your old house over here in the garage for you." And I'm just like, "Oh, cool." But again, I'm trying to keep a poker face. I'm not letting it get to me. This is exciting. It's moving day, And sure, it's stressful for everyone. We go in the house and open a box of donuts, ladies first, and she gives me this look of horror. It still hadn't sunk into my blonde hair. Maybe we don't open boxes of food and share them just quite as readily as, I'm just a people person. I don't care about that. But she gives me this funny look, and okay, that's fine. Here, I'll put the box of donuts down. And we kind of part ways, and I go back out, and I got my little minivan, and I'm making trips back and forth because their houses are only about 1.5 miles apart. And I'm getting stuff out of my garage, just tools and kids' toys and whatnot. And I'm filling up the corner, and I make a few trips, and I pop into the house, and checking on progress, 0 has been made. But I try not to let it get to me. But while I'm up, I hear upstairs with her dog, and they don't come downstairs. But while I'm in there, I pop a few pictures, just so maybe, if people hear this story, they think, "Oh, Scott, you're just being silly," Or maybe I also, at the same time, also thought, maybe I'm the one that's wrong. Maybe I was a little too anal retentive, and I packed up 7 weeks ago, and have just been dying to move. Maybe I'm wrong. This is the way normal people do it. They do it on moving day, whatever. So I keep making some trips back and forth and put some more stuff in this little tiny corner of the garage, and I go in to check again. Again, 0 progress has been made, and this time she comes down, and it looks like she's recently had a meltdown and kind of calmed down in the past couple minutes. And she comes downstairs, and I engage, and I'm like, "Audrey, are you all right? Do you need anything?" And it looks like, you sure do have a lot going on here. There's an empty U-Haul truck out in the driveway still, and, it just seems like a lot's going on. Are you sure you're okay? Do you need any help or anything? She's like, "No, I'm fine. But, we got till 4 o'clock today anyway. That's what the contract says. We got till 4. And, I said a lot more to that to my real estate agent when I realized that a few weeks before I had caught that after we'd signed the paperwork. Again, something in your future real estate transactions, maybe make sure moving day begins bright and early, not at 4 in the evening. Anyway, so she makes sure I remember this. Of course I remember this because that was a big hang up in my head. And, we kind of part ways again. She goes about her thing, and I go about my thing. And a couple more trips back and forth, maybe 45 minutes go by. And this time when I come back in, I'm greeted outside. There's 2 guys outside. We'll call them Jay and Silent Bob, because that's pretty much, well, they're more the Silent Bob than they were Jay. But, and I get out, a big old bubble of happiness. "Hey, guys, good morning. Hey, I'm Scott. I'm the new homeowner. Hey, I brought donuts. There's donuts inside. Make sure you get some breakfast." And the one guy just gives me like the prison kind of cold shoulder and walks right by me and ignores me entirely. And the other guy grunts at me like a farm animal, whatever, Again, everybody's stressed on moving day. Keep that in your mind, Scott, and it's fine. So put the stuff in the corner of the garage, go inside. Now Audrey is there with her mom, and they're standing there. And, as soon as I see her mom, again, just trying to be pleasant and happy and upbeat. "Hey, good morning, I'm Scott. I'm the new homeowner. It's good to meet you. Hey, I brought donuts. Make sure you get a donut. Have some breakfast." And her response to that, Scott, they have till 4 p.m. this evening to move out of the house, right? And I'm, maybe a little too sarcastic. Yes, I'm very familiar. We all know this 4 o'clock thing today. Yeah, totally get that. Between my last couple trips, I had went ahead and shared with my real estate agent my genuine concern of the situation. She didn't quite believe me, so I told her to hang up and check her phone, and I texted her all the pictures, to which she finally, okay, oh, wow, that is pretty crazy. So she reaches out to their real estate agent, who doesn't believe how crazy it is, shares the pictures. Oh, gosh, so now they're both involved. And I guess their real estate agent had reached out to them, and instead of lighting that fire under them to get them moving forward here on moving day with the rest of, my side, it kind of brought them back a little bit. Now they're really resentful for that. A little angry, and Audrey, her mom's reminding me of the 4 o'clock thing, and Audrey just kind of jumps out at me. She's like, I don't appreciate it. And I'm like, no. don't appreciate me. Don't try and appreciate me. Don't, my little fuse now completely gone. I'm like, don't worry about me. I just need you to get boxes in that U-Haul. Please, we got less than 6 hours to go at this point. We got to move. It is time. We have to be done by 4. We don't get until 4. We have to be done and complete by 4. And her mom kind of jumps in, well, let's just go our separate ways, and we'll get working on the house. Don't worry about us, just keep, you got your space in the garage. I'm like, oh, thanks a lot. I was going to move some stuff into the shed, and I mentioned that because by now I have left my little corner that they made me, and I say, I'm going to get my stuff out of the shed, maybe, I'll stay out of your way, no big deal. And again, I get this just like look of like lost, just completely lost. And she actually says, I didn't even know we had a shed. I'll go out and I guess I'll start working on that for you. And I'm like, no, don't worry about it. Just, we'll just keep doing our thing. We'll keep doing our thing. It'll be fine. And I go and I make a couple more trips. And this time when I come back, I'm in the garage, and I hear this car just come to a screeching halt in the middle of the street, and we're back deep in a cul-de-sac. So there's no traffic unless you live there, and to hear a car screeching to a halt like it's going to crash or something is kind of odd. And I hear somebody get out, and where is he? Who is this? Where's the guy that bought this house? Where is he? I want to see him. Where is he right now? And Jay and Silent Bob thought it was hilarious. He's right there. It's a little bit of fun reaction from them. And he comes stomping up to me, literally feet on the floor like a child that didn't get the toy before they left the store, and he just jumps in my face. Who are you to attack my wife? Why did you attack you can't attack my wife. Do you know who I am? You don't know who you're dealing with. And I'm, again, my short fuse long since gone at this point, hands up on the hips, and I'm like, is that what she said? Why don't you go fetch your wife, bring her out here, and we'll all three talk about it out here, Daniel. And I start traveling down this road of not my finest moments in life, but I chose to engage. Why not? It's my moving day too, damn it. He doesn't like that answer, and he just starts yelling. He starts stomping around, and now he's snorting like an animal, and he's just around like this, and it's crazy. And he throws his keys down, and he rips the shirt off the back of his head, and he's like, come on, you and me right now, come on, let's go, let's do this. And I turn my back on because I know what, no one wants to spend the afternoon or the night in jail for, fighting over moving days. Crazy. So I turn my back on him. In my head, it was a good sign of disrespect, but, probably the safest move too. I turn my back on him, and I'm just like, getting hands on hips. Daniel, if you want to take the first swing, by all means, beat me up. But you have to be moved out of here by 4 p.m. today. Beat me up, and you have to move. And, again, he doesn't like that. He's got his shirt off, and he's doing his stomping and snort. I don't even know I've been in fights before. I've never snorted. Whatever. That's his thing. And, he's got his shirt off, and he points to this tattoo on his beer belly. He's been in Afghanistan. He's an Army vet. And I get that, and I respect that. You don't know who you're dealing with. She takes care of me and my kids, and I'm a war veteran. And he's just going off on me. And that's when Jay and Silent Bob jump in between us. Thank goodness, right? And one guy kind of pushes Daniel off into the garage that separates us. The other guy kind of, pushes, gets close to me. We take a couple steps back closer, and I'm standing on the sidewalk by my minivan. And he's like, man, let's just part ways right now. Just everyone cool down. And, and still, hands on hips, I'm defiant. No, this is my moving down. I'm not going anywhere. He's like, come on, man. They're going to want me to call the cops or something. It's just, let's just all separate. And I'm like, here's my cell phone. You can call the police from my phone. I'm fine with that. I'm not going anywhere. This is my house, and I got my copy of my contract by this time in my minivan, like waiting to be a dumbass about it. Oh, look, it says it. Again, not my finest moments. He shakes his head at me, and he walks away, and I stand there, kind of waiting. Is somebody going to come out of the garage? Or somebody going to come out the door? Who's with me? Who's on me, As I calm down a little bit, I do call the police. I call the non-emergency number, and, I tell the guy what's going on, and he tells me, like any good parent probably would to a ding-dong in this situation like I'm perpetuating. And he tells me, just part ways. I'll put you on the list. We'll get an officer out there eventually. Give me an hour or so. We'll call you when we're coming out there. Just go back to the other house for right now. And I very reluctantly get in the van slowly and stare the house down. Like, you didn't win yet. And as I pull away, my real estate agent called, because of course they had gone in, they called their agent, who reached out to mine, and now she's telling me the same thing. Scott, just stay away. just stay away, we'll work it out. And sure enough, she had to drive both agents because the house, this is all closed. They've got their commission checks. They're out working their jobs again. Well, now they both have to kind of change their schedules to go over to this house because they have to lead this family, kind of manage the situation and get them packed up, moved out of this house. Their real estate agent, Tracy, was quite generous with them. Turns out she went and got temporary labor, hired them temporary labor, got them a second U-Haul truck, and then for us, she also, out of her own pocket, bought us a cleaning person, which took literally 2 days. I don't know what she charged her. Took 2 days to clean this house up and all the mess that they left behind. And it was literally just the craziest situation anyone could ever imagine. Later that evening, literally like 10 o'clock, Diane calls us. She's not coming back to the situation at this point. She calls us and lets us know we can go over and get the keys. Her mom is there. She's fine, and I go over and I'm not prepared to be fine yet. I still got a little bit of asshole left in me. So I sit in the van because my wife told me to. And and she goes up, she gets the keys from Audrey's mom, and they were very cordial, and they chatted for a few minutes, and everything was fine. It turned out through all this craziness, it took them till about 9:30 to get out of the house. It took her mom till about 10:15 to get out of the house, and like I said, it was literally just the craziest thing I'd ever encountered. Both our real estate agents, Diane and Tracy, both were unable to come up with any story that compared to this moving day at all. This was the one thing where, moving day truly was a nightmare, but every day since then has been a dream. Thank you.
One more time for Scott. All right, Scott. With her husband, Tom, our next storyteller tonight moved from Milwaukee to Cincinnati a year ago. Having moved during the pandemic, she still hasn't found her way around Cincinnati. For example, tonight is her first night in Memorial Hall. She is not a lawyer. I think she has to say that for legal reasons, because she also says she works in a law firm by day and spends her evenings writing and performing, an activity that she loves and she started 10 years ago when she was trying to overcome her fear of public speaking, which led her to taking improv classes, which led her to stand-up comedy, and now storytelling. Please welcome Julie Cole.
Good evening. My story takes us back to May 1983, when I was a junior at Ohio State. It was a Saturday morning, 9 a.m., when I heard one of my sorority sisters screaming my name down the hallway. Now remember, in 1983, when we didn't have cell phones, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, they had to call a general house number, somebody had to find you, and then you talked to a phone attached to a wall. As I picked up the receiver, I could hear the familiar voice of my best friend, Bridget. "Doug just canceled," she said, irritated. I was still waking up, but quickly grasped the urgency of this situation. This was her very last sorority date party. They were to canoe down the Little Miami, and she had asked Doug, who had agreed to accompany her, but now she was dateless. And in 1983, at least in sororities in the Midwest, if you didn't have a male date, you didn't go. We sat for the next 10 minutes just thinking of what kind of prospects she might have, who could fill in. None of them were reliable. But I should probably explain a little bit how we became best friends. We were both dating the same guy and realized we liked each other better than him. Not a romantic like, but a kindred spirit like. Even though we met before the movie Thelma and Louise, Afterwards, people would use the term to describe us. So we were sitting there figuring, what are we gonna do? I guess she just can't go. And then she blurted out, well, you can be my date. We're like, wow, that's pretty scandalous. I mean, thankfully now we have same-sex marriage, kids can take whoever they want to the prom. 1983, it was different. And she's like, seriously, what are they gonna do? Throw me out? I graduate next month. I said, okay, I'm in, but on one condition. We must make a complete mockery out of the whole thing. It's the only way it's gonna work, if they think we're silly, not serious. So, with an hour left before the bus arrived, we skipped showers, makeup, and we focused on our outfits. We found old t-shirts and ripped them up and got a red Sharpie marker and wrote, "Screw conformity" on the front. And then put on men's boxer shorts and tied bandanas around our head. We were ready to roll. We arrived in front of the sorority house just as the bus was getting there. And there was just a flock of preppy girls and their equally preppy dates standing on the lawn with Izod collar shirts turned up and perfectly pressed chinos. Bridget and I grabbed the beer from the back seat and she yelled at the crowd, "Meet my date, Julie." I gave a bow and we got a respectable round of applause, but we still had a hurdle. The chapter president, Missy, a tall woman with a bouncy ponytail and a clipboard, was checking off couples as they wanted to get on the bus. She looked at me and rolled her eyes and she said, "You're Doug?" And I said, "Today I am." And then she glared at Bridget and she said, "I should have expected this from you." You see, Bridget and I like the camaraderie of sorority life, but not all the rules. But once on the bus, we were emboldened. We headed straight to the back. 15 minutes into the ride, it's quiet. It's boring. I looked at her, she looked at me. Without saying a word, we broke into song. "Green Acres is the place to be. Farm living is the life for me. Land spreading out so far and wide. Keep Manhattan, just give me that countryside." And then we followed it with Gilligan's Island and the Brady Bunch. And we had unintentionally polarized the bus. Half of them thought we were heroes and were singing along, and the other half thought we were idiots, and they were both right. But 3 warm beers and a bumpy bus ride later, we arrived at the canoe livery. Everyone started scattering as the manager, Hank, began screaming orders at people. "Sign the liability release, pick out your canoe, get a life jacket, secure your supplies." Supplies? Did we need supplies? He then went into the explicit safety instructions that are required when you take an 11-mile canoe trip. But Bridget was really focused on opening another beer, and the pop and then fizz distracted the crowd and annoyed Hank. He came over to us and just got in our face and he said, "You need life jackets." And I tilted my head and kind of flaunted my screw conformity shirt, and I said, "No, really, does a life jacket go with this outfit?" And he said, "No life jacket, no canoe." So Bridget and I realized we needed to comply, and we did in the most resistant way possible. We walked over to the rack of life jackets, looked at our options, and reached for the infant life jackets and put it around our neck the way that people put neck supports as they're going onto the airplane. So that's when we strutted out onto the dock and our glory ended. As we got into the canoe, our feet unsteady and it started to sway, we realized one inconvenient truth. Neither of us had ever really been canoeing before. I hadn't, she had once with a guy who did most of the paddling and the navigation, but there was no turning back now. Since she had a little bit of sailing experience, she took the stern, I took the bow. I just felt so dizzy. I was like, is it the canoe? Is it my beer-filled brain? But we launched. We felt victorious, but only for 100 yards. We ran into a bridge abutment. The canoe tipped. We tumbled into the cold water. The good news, it was still shallow enough that we could empty the canoe. The bad news, Missy and her date and the ones that thought we were idiots were really close by, and they just were laughing and pointing at us. We had lost half of our beer in Bridget's left shoe, but we quickly got back in, wanting to regain our rebel status. We remembered that Hank guy saying something about the trip taking 3.5 hours, and we were like, we can do this quicker. I mean, our main motivation at this point was food. In our haste to get to the bus, we had skipped breakfast and lunch. We were starving. So we began paddling faster. Over the next 6 hours, our canoe tipped 10 more times. Tip 2, Bridget lost her other shoe. She dove in to find it, and I was just staring at the surface, waiting for her to reappear. And it felt like minutes were passing by, and she didn't, and I was so worried that she was drowning. And I went to dive in after her, and she reemerged, wet, muddy, but still no shoe. Tip 5, I lost my right shoe and my infant life jacket. Tip 7, she was trying to save our one remaining beer, and she lost her infant life jacket. Tip 9, I really had to go to the bathroom, but we couldn't get to shore, so I peed in the river through my boxer shorts. And then tip 10, we lost a paddle. Now, thankfully those things float, but we had to use our hands to get to it to recover it. At this point, we were shaking because we were so cold in our thin, wet clothing. We could tell the sun was getting ready to set, and we didn't have any idea where we were. There was sort of like this little fork to the river. We looked at each other, we rock, paper, scissored it, and decided to go left. By this point in the trip, we had figured out how to paddle together, but we were so exhausted, our arms were so tired that we couldn't. And then suddenly, we heard voices in the distance, and we smelled fire and food. And excited, we began paddling so fast to see our friends. And as we got close to the bank, we didn't see preppy co-eds. We saw 3 big, white, burly men with gray beards that looked like they lived in the woods. We were disappointed it wasn't our group. We thought, well, maybe they can help us with instructions. So I was paddling closer. We're trying to ask them something, and the taller man yelled down, "Hey, darlings, why don't you come up here for some food?" The fire looked warm. The food smelled good. For a split second, we almost did. But out of the blue, running down the bank was another bare-chested man. And he was hooting and hollering, and he said, "Ooh, I smell pussy. Here, kitty, kitty. Here, kitty, kitty." It was also at that moment we both swear we heard the banjos from Deliverance strumming in the background. Adrenaline force propelled us. We started paddling as fast as we could away. We looked in the back, and Pussy Man was trying to launch his canoe and come after us. We just kept paddling and paddling and paddling until they were nowhere in sight. Suddenly, we were catching our breath, paddling a little slower. I started to grasp the gravity of our situation. We had nearly drowned, escaped potential rape. It was basically dark. We could hardly see. And we were so cold, I couldn't feel my hands or my feet. To make matters worse, now there really was a fork in the river. We just stared at each other. She said, "Didn't that Hank guy say something about the confluence of the Little Miami and the Great Miami?" I was like, "I don't know. I wasn't paying attention." And she goes, "Well, maybe you should have." I said, "Well, maybe you should have had a real date." And then we got upset with each other for getting upset. And we just felt so defeated. You know, we just wanted to get there before the rescue crew had to come out and get us. And she said, well, I think we just need to cross it. We thought, well, this is our last hope. We've lost everything but our dignity. Let's give it a try. So we started fighting the current, fighting our tears. And within like 5 minutes, we saw the flicker of a bonfire, and we heard young voices laughing, and we knew we had made it. As we parked the canoe, we got out, we were shaky, shoeless, soaked, bruised, but I saw a smiling Missy running toward us. And I was like, aw, she does have some compassion after all. And she got closer and she said, Doug, Bridget, I think these are yours, and handed us our infant life jackets back, driving the final nail in our screw conformity coffin. Thank you.
Another round of applause for Julie. For Julie. We've got another storyteller before we're going to have like a 15-minute intermission, during which time you could do those couple of activities we were telling you about. If you're still a little unsure of what we were talking about the mask-making opportunity available to you, I would like to right now introduce a couple of our board members, Ramona Toussaint and Marta Hewitt, to explain it to you.
You can clap for us. I won't be mad. Hi, I'm Ramona Toussaint. And I'm Marta. Can you hear her? She's Marta. So we are on the board of True Theater, and right now we are looking for board members and volunteers to do help with things that are kind of cool, like this. Do you think this is cool? I don't know if it's cool. You might not think it's cool, but right downstairs by the bar, we have a mask making station, and it is based on Saul Steinberg's, do you guys know the museum, Cincinnati Art Museum mural? He was the guy who was the New Yorker cartoonist, and we have a friend in the audience whose great idea this was, who's a big fan, but he had this idea that we all wear disguises. We all wear a mask. And we thought it was really appropriate to do something fun for True Theater tonight and have a little bit of a contest. In the world, he says, in the world as he saw it, everyone wears a mask, whether real or metaphorical. People invent personas through makeup, facial expressions, hairstyles, and these facades become who they are. The mask is a protection against revelation. Ooh, deep. So tonight, hopefully you'll have a little bit of fun. And we'll be walking around, Marta and I, doing a little bit of assessment on the best mask. We'll have some prizes at the head of the second half, right? So, Marta, I don't know if you want to tell a little bit about your mask.
So, what we'd like you to do at intermission is go down to the first floor.
Oh, here.
We'd like you to go down to the first floor during intermission. We have all the supplies, bags, pastels, markers, everything that you need to create your own persona, your own mask.
You don't have to be an artist. It'll take 2 seconds.
Don't have to be an artist. Anyone can do this. And then we are going to be walking around taking pictures and trying to select the most eye-catching masks. And then we will have a couple prizes that we'll be handing out then during the continuation of the show. So please come down to the first floor during intermission. We have drinks down there as well. and would love to have you participate in this activity.
Thank you, Marta and Ramona. I asked and they said you can so easily make a mask and within the 15 minutes of intermission, so please participate. That should be a lot of fun. Our next storyteller hasn't always been, but was originally and is currently a Cincinnatian. He is also an artist, an activist, and sometimes misfit Muppet, in his words, when he assumes his onstage drag persona, Sparkle Lee. Awesome. He is the caretaker of Mount Auburn Presbyterian Church, the chair of PFLAG Cincinnati. PFLAG, by the way, being the first and largest organization for LGBTQ plus people, their families, their friends, their parents, and allies. And the co-founder of Treehouse Cincinnati, which to say it supports the greater Cincinnati LGBTQ plus community and all of its intersections is just skimming the surface of what all they do. Keep an eye out for them. They are growing and going to be very great for this city, I think. He is also a proud uncle to some incredible humans he doesn't get to see enough. His story comes with a bit of a trigger warning. It involves a hit-and-run accident, which was definitely intentional and very likely motivated by bigotry. Happened 5 years ago, and although he looks fabulous on the outside, he still suffers the ramifications of this, what he calls collision, on the inside, with things like memory loss and depression and acronyms with C in them, which stand for concussion. He wants you to know, however, that he is telling tonight's story from a safe place, dropping a few F-bombs on the way. Please welcome Dan Davidson.
Thank you. So something that I get asked to do very often these days as an entertainer, as a community builder, and as a sometimes educator is imagination exercises. Now this is mainly for Smurf-like people about ages 2.5 to 7. And as David was saying, I usually do this as my glitter tune drag persona, Sparkle Lee. And also, as David said, she's a little bit of like a lady Muppet, Miss Frizzle. And when I do these activities for the kids, it's mainly LGBTQ family programming and whatnot. It's a program called Storytime with Sparkle. And it's also just a great excuse to make my beard really glittery, which is especially helpful when you're working with Smurf-like people ages 2.5 to 7, because shiny. It's really good. So if you would, please join me. All journeys are honored, so please close your eyes or don't close your eyes, whatever you'd like to do. But I would like for you to pretend that you are being pulled out of an ambulance. And it is exactly like an episode of Grey's Anatomy. Only it's not like the episode of Grey's Anatomy where like the ambulance comes careening into the boarding thing and just crashes. It's just like a normal episode of Grey's Anatomy. And as you're being kind of wheeled off, there's a bunch of police and medical staff, not McSteamy yet, but everybody's kind of buzzing around. And suddenly you realize, oh my God, we're in Seattle. I'm being wheeled into literally Harborview Medical Center, which literally was what Grey's Anatomy was kind of based off of. And like, oh my God, what season, what episode, what's going on? And then you also think to yourself, or I'll go to first person now, I thought to myself, okay, somebody's got to break the mood, or you know, everybody looks a little stressed out, so I'll be the charming, witty guy in the episode. And I basically try to say, hello folks, the circus is here. Which doesn't really land well because I can barely move my jaw, my mouth is really bloody, and about a third of my teeth are missing. And also at this point, they basically had kind of wheeled me into the ER, and I'm like strapped on a gurney, neck brace, and everybody's buzzing around, and they're really concerned because I can kind of only feel the right side of my body. Left side still hasn't come back yet. And it was kind of at this moment where I remember basically it's not necessarily like this is the most painful thing that's ever happened. It is like you're being ushered into a Stranger Things upside down world of hurt is how I would describe this. If you or anybody that you know has ever suffered from a traumatic brain injury, there is no relief. There is no off button. Laying down, closing your eyes, very strong meds. You can do several things, but there's just kind of no relief because the injury is inside of your head. So I'm here in hell. And then suddenly, McSteamy. Only it wasn't actually McSteamy. This was my very studly friend Andy, who happened to be working in the trauma unit that night. And he was very concerned. He had come over because he thought he knew the drag clown that had just been brought in. And I will never forget Andy kind of peering over my gurney and just kind of saying, "Hey, buddy." And in that moment, it was just like the most charming thing that had ever happened, despite everything else. And even if I was going to forget it in 5 minutes, I was just very appreciative of that. And Seattle in 2017, we're in the midst of a very crazy like drag renaissance. So these are a lot of different performance venues that very, very, very vibrantly from my time at the College Conservatory of Music. I had stumbled into being on stages with Jinx Monsoon, with Ben de la Creme, Trixie Mattel, Latrice Royale, that biatch Butch Alice. Lots of different crazy fun shows. And the night of the collision, I had asked my dear friend Becky to come to the show that I was hosting. It was called What the Fuck Wednesday. It was very aptly named that so that I could literally invite any performer friend of mine to come and perform whatever the fuck they wanted to perform. It could be puppets, it could be performance art, or this night, La Traviata. We were gonna be having 2 arias. It was gonna be fine. It was gonna be good. After the show, Becky and I were outside the club saying goodbye to everybody, and we turned and stopped at a crosswalk. And there were 2 cars that stopped for us. The one was a little bit closer, and the second one was a little bit further away. And as we walked in front of the first car, I believe that's when the driver of the second car saw my glittery makeup that I hadn't washed off yet. I was gonna do that kind of at home later on. But in that moment, he decided to hit the gas and aim the car at me. Luckily, my friend Becky was able to kind of get out of the way. She ended up kind of on the hood, just with her arms on the hood. She kind of swiped her knees a little bit. Unfortunately, the car hit me in my abdomen, which sent my head slamming into the windshield and shattering all of those teeth that I talked about earlier. Later on, I would have to have 5 major dental reconstructive surgeries that were about 2 to 3 hours each. And at that point, I do remember that there was a pause. This was like a hit and run, so that there was like the hit, and a lot of it is a little patchy, but I remember I could not see the guy's face, but I think in this moment he kind of looked over and realized that the first car that had stopped was an undercover police officer. At the intersection, there was actually another police officer that had just seen all of this happen. And then along the road, there were all the people that just got outside of the club and started screaming at the guy. So almost instantaneously, he hit the gas again. And I was still on the hood and kind of was like a Batman Indiana Jones for about 40 feet. That was my action career. before I blacked out and I slid off the side of the hood. And when I slid off the side of the hood, being blacked out, I ended up slamming my head about 2 to 3 more times and kind of mangling my legs pretty badly, and I had to walk with a cane for about 9 months. Now, forgive my glitchy memory. I'm going to get a little piece of paper. I was eventually handed the TBI diagnosis, which is a traumatic brain injury, concussion, PCS, or post-concussive syndrome, complex PTSD, severe anxiety, optical nerve damage, chronic migraine, tinnitus, which is ear ringing and has never really gone away, wildly out of control emotional states, memory loss, TIA, transient ischemic attacks, or mini stroke, and wrestled with symptoms that were described as early onset dementia and Alzheimer's, and without downplaying the depression, suicidal thoughts, and the ever-present whiplash, which kind of accompanies not being able to really handle crowded rooms very well, especially ones with very loud music and like disco lights. So literally all of the venues that I was performing in. Eventually when I got out of the hospital, because I didn't have insurance, they kind of sent me away and were like, if you see these symptoms, you get back here, because that's not good. So for about 2 to 3 weeks, every few days, I was kind of in and out of the hospital. And at one point, there was a moment where my abdomen started to become a little bit like distended. And I went to the ER and they were basically like, your body could be shutting down. Could you please wait? So I remember being freaked out, but yes, okay, and turned and politely had the choice between a very cold gray corner and like a chair with a potted plant, and I chose the potted plant. Through this whole thing, I feel like I've gained just a lot of patience and perspective, I'd say. And for however long I'm still here, I kind of came back to Cincinnati because this is where my body would have come back. Whether I would have actually wanted that or not. And I've kind of dug in here in the Midwest because it seemed like America was really changing. And it felt better to be kind of on the front lines here in the Midwest than formerly the now unsafe West Coast. So my nightmare is that I'm still recovering, and I might be for quite some time, but nearly all of what I'm navigating seems to be invisible, elusive, and kind of nebulous. It's very post-concussive syndrome is a lot of what people call it. And what happened to the driver? So from what I've been able to gather through a background check, this person now lives in Florida and has 4 felonies. DUI, an HR pedestrian or bike felony, a refusal to stop, and a reckless endangerment charge. Now, I'm not sure if they are related actually to the incident our night, and definitely not sure if this was even technically classified as a hate crime. He actually was already involved with another aggravated assault in the midst of our hearing, so it kind of became very complex. So, the thing that I would just like to encourage people is basically just to kind of talk to the LGBTQ people in your life and listen to them. Unfortunately, my story isn't actually that unique. I think that it's really, really important that people just know that what has happened to me is not okay. And every time that it's happened to me, it's not okay. When I survived conversion therapy here with Design and Intent Ministries formerly known as Prodigal Ministries. It's not okay. The hundreds and thousands of trans people who are targeted nationally the last few years and have experienced violence or have passed because of suicide. It's not okay. And an entire generation of people who are disproportionately queer identified, who survived an AIDS and HIV virus that there was no quarantine from. It's not okay. To everybody who is LGBTQ, friends and family, you are authentically seen, you are genuinely heard, and you are unconditionally loved. Thank you.
One more time for Dan, please. Folks, we're going to take that 15-minute intermission now. Please have fun with the mask making station. Get yourself a subscription for the rest of the season. If you're at home, maybe make yourself a bowl of popcorn or a donation to True Theater by texting True12 to 44321 or visiting truetheater.org/donate. We'll see you back here in about 15. You're going to want to hear the next two stories we have for you. Preston Bell Charles III. Now is actually a good time to tell you a little bit about Preston. He has played in such notable places and sites and venues as the Basilica of Spain, St. Martin's in the Fields in England, and the Carnegie Hall. Yeah. He's a music teacher at Talent Music Studios and also the music director of Cincinnati Hip Hop Orchestra, which debuted last December at Music Hall next door. This December, you'll be able to see a documentary he created with the help of a Truth and Reconciliation grant from ArtsWave, discussing the roots of the concept of race internationally and its effect on our local history. Keep an eye on his website, makeithappenmusic.com, for more details about that, and also to see some videos of him playing and hear just a lot more of his beautiful music, which you could also hear by finding him by his name, Preston Bell Charles III, on all your various social media platforms. Thanks again, Preston. Folks, I want to tell you about the rest of the season that we have for you in store to get you excited about the upcoming shows. January 27th, also a Thursday night. All our shows are Thursday nights. We're bringing you True Dad. Yeah, we did True Mom a few years ago, and I got to tell you, if there's ever a theme we might repeat, it's that one, but this time around it's True Dad. April 28th, also a Thursday, we're doing True Prom. And I really hope that things have lightened up quite a bit by then, because that has the potential to be a real party scene here, right? And we'll finish out season 12 on July 28th with True Hobby. And this is not your typical, I like to go fishing gun hobby. This is, well, I don't know what it's going to be yet, but you can be sure it's going to be more than that, unless somebody got eaten by a whale or something, on their hobby. But yeah, so that'd be a good story if you know anybody. But so, speaking of if you know anybody, if you have a story that you think fits any of those themes, dads, proms, hobbies, then you're going to want to make sure we hear from you. If you're on our newsletter, we will definitely be letting you know when we're actively looking, but at any time you feel like it, you can go to our website at truetheater.org, and there's a submit a story button. You could also write us at stories@truetheater.org, and there's also a telephone number, I think, on our website, which if you found it and left a message, don't do that. I used to encourage people to do it because nobody was doing it, and then we did it, and then I couldn't tell what they said the email address was, and we couldn't. Anyway, so skip that. Just go to our website. Submit a story is the great link, and if you think you got a story that we just need to hear, also go to the website and let us hear from you. Tell us a little bit about it. We've been known to pick themes in future seasons when we know there's a story out there we just got to have represented on our stage. So if you have a story, you know somebody who does. We've gotten lots of referrals at this show before, too. Pass the word along. Also, get them on our mailing list. Go to our website, and there's sign up on the mailing list. So you're the first to hear when we're actively seeking the storytellers and putting stuff together. When there's any news that's fit to print, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We're True Theater, and all those places. So keep abreast, keep up with the news, and I'd like to hear from you when you got a story to share. So cool. All right. Hey, it's time to bring out our fourth storyteller tonight. Our next storyteller was born and raised here by her mother. She's the oldest of 5 siblings with 2 brothers and 2 sisters. She is the owner of OPC Consulting, where she uses her experience and expertise to help organizations improve their workplace equity. So, very important job that she has. She is very involved in community activities and nonprofits and enjoys traveling, reading, and bourbon. I like those things too. Most importantly, she says she is the proud mother of a magnificent daughter and a wonderful son-in-law, and is the doting grandmother of this just in, the world's best 2-year-old twins. So, yeah. And I said earlier this wasn't really a Halloween-themed show, but it's kind of about to turn into one. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Arlene Koth.
So growing up, I was told that there was a God. He had his angels. They mostly just kind of chilled. Every now and then they'd swoop down and save somebody from a burning car, or sit atop a Christmas tree. For the most part, they were just kind of hanging out. And there's a devil. And the devil has his minions, demons. And these demons were behind everything sinister and terrible and horrible that was supernatural. But they only bothered people who were bad, doing bad things. So I was always enamored with ghost stories and witches and voodoo and all of those scary things like haunted houses, because it was just make-believe. It wasn't real. It was just good old-fashioned clean fun. Until it wasn't. Until it became real. Until it started happening to me and my family. So let me take you back. It's the early 2000s. I'm married. I have a 6-year-old daughter, and I have a dog. Now, the 6-year-old daughter and the dog, awesome. Marriage, not so much. It's kind of rocky, okay? So we decided what would fix a rocky marriage is to buy a bigger house. Why not go deeper in debt with a bigger mortgage? Because that always works to fix a marriage. That's what couples counselors tell people to do, right? So that's what we did. So we go to this house, and I remember walking into it and thinking, wow, this is going to be a step up from our little starter home, our little Cape Cod, which was small but very unhaunted, okay? So we go to this house in this working class suburban neighborhood. It's just a regular 2-story colonial. We had a few bedrooms, we had a few bathrooms, we had some space. Really excited about it. So it wasn't one of these huge Victorian houses that you're used to being afraid of, right? It wasn't the rural farmhouse where nobody can hear you scream. It was just regular, okay? So we go through the house, and I remember when we initially toured the house, there was this little thing in my gut that was making me feel uneasy. I chalked it up to the fact that we were about to embark on a very big move financially and literally, and I just let it pass. But knowing what I know now, I probably should have listened to that uneasy feeling. So we move in, and it's our first night there. We're exhausted. We've been unpacking and all kinds of things. We didn't have a lot of stuff because we moved from a smaller house to a bigger house, so there was rooms that didn't have furniture and stuff like that. But we're tired. My daughter's asleep in her room down the hall. My husband is asleep in the bed. And our dog, who was an adult Rottweiler named Sable, she was wonderful, super friendly, super loyal, but very fiercely protective of our space and of our family. And so she would always sleep. In our other house, she slept in between both bedrooms. So she would always sleep there so she could see and keep an eye on everything. So I anticipated that she'd either sleep at the bottom of the steps of the new house or she'd sleep at the top, but she was going to be guarding the bedrooms. So I can hear her pacing back and forth on the carpet. So you know I'm awake because you don't usually hear dogs walking on carpet, but I hear her pacing back and forth on the carpet. And I'm like, crap. She's not sleeping either. So I go and I open the door and I tell her to come in. Now, there was a rule that dogs not allowed in the bedrooms. We can talk about that rule later, but that was my rule. So when I asked the dog to come into the room, she paused and she's looking at me like, what kind of trickery is this, right? I'm not allowed in the bedrooms. Are you trying to get me in trouble? What's happening, right? So I finally coax her in. She comes and lays down on the floor on my side of the bed. We don't sleep a wink the entire night. We're both looking at each other every time we hear a noise. And when I've told this story before, people always say, well, you know, it's a new house. It's making noise, it's settling, it's all of that. And I have to remind them, this isn't the first time I've moved into a new place, okay? So I know the difference between a house settling and a house that feels like it's waking up and it's moving, okay? So me and the dog are both uneasy. We get through the night, which was the first of many unsettling experiences in this house. Fast forward a few weeks, we realized that our dog, who is normally very calm, she's not a barker, she's not a whiner, She's older at this point, so she's pretty mature. She's just chilling. We will find her in rooms where she is whining or barking because she has gotten trapped in that room. The doors in this house close by themselves. And I'm not talking about, oh, it was almost closed and there was a draft and it slammed. No. From a wide open position when there's no wind, no draft, heat isn't on, air conditioning on, there's no wind in the house. And the doors are slamming shut. We even put something in front of the door so that they wouldn't slam, because in our mind, we're rationalizing still, right? We still haven't come to grips with weird things are happening. We're like, well, maybe it's not level, and that's why the doors are slamming, right? So the doors continue to slam even after we have put something in them, so in front of it. So that happens. We kind of try to dismiss it, and we just deal with it. Fast forward a little bit more, and unfortunately, buying a house did not save our marriage. So my still at the time husband, but now ex-husband, has moved out. Sable's no longer alive. Unfortunately, I can't blame it on the house entirely. However, what I can say is that this was a dog who was so loving and so kind. She was having accidents in the house. She was growling at me, at weird things that she just had never done until she was in this house. So her last days were not very comfortable, and that makes me very sad. But now it's me and my daughter, my 6-year-old daughter. And we are watching TV one evening with a friend and his wife. So the 4 of us are in our family room, and while we're watching a movie, we're watching the movie Signs, which, if you're not familiar, with the movie Signs, it's by M. Night Shyamalan. And if you're not familiar with him, look him up. He's creepy, and so are his movies. So we're watching this movie, and we had a fireplace in the family room, and we kept a dustbuster nearby just so that we could sweep up any errant ashes and stuff like that off the floor. While we're watching the movie, the dustbuster just turns on, out of the blue, okay? I get up, because nobody else is moving, and I turn it off, and I'm looking at it, and I'm trying to figure out, what the hell? We can't explain it, so we just ignore it, and we go back to watching the movie. About 10 minutes later, the door between the family room and the garage swings open. Now, this is a door that has an automatic door closer on it, so that when you let go of it, it automatically closes on its own with generally a pretty good deal of force. So this isn't something that just swings open with a breeze. And it swung completely open. So I look at my friend and I say, hey, can you go check and see what's going on with the door? So I don't know what's so funny, because he literally said, absolutely not. He and his wife said, as a matter of fact, we're gonna leave. My daughter and I should have done the same thing. But this is where we live, right? So they left, and I don't blame them. They made the right call, because I'd have done it to them. So let's just be clear. So a little while passes, and my mother, who I'm very glad is in the audience today, my mother comes to stay with us for a little while because she's having some renovations done on her house, and it's best that she is staying out of the house while that's happening. So she's in one of the spare rooms, and it's a Saturday night, like midnight, and I'm watching Children of the Corn like most people do. And so I'm in my bedroom watching Children of the Corn, and if you're not familiar with Children of the Corn, you're all familiar with Stephen King, and I'll just leave it at that. So these kids are running around killing the adults. So the movie goes off around 2 a.m., and I think, as a responsible parent, I should probably go and check on my own child, make sure that she is not plotting and scheming to kill me. So I flip on the hallway light, and I open her door, and she's not in her bed. Right, I had the same reaction. For a split second, And I thought, oh, you know what? Maybe she fell out of the bed. So I turn the light on in her room, and I go in her room, and I look everywhere, under the bed, everywhere. She's not there. Now, mind you, we're on the second floor. She's 6, so she didn't go out the window to a wild party. I'm pretty sure of that. But I was almost ready to panic, full blown, but then I was like, oh, you know what? Maybe she just got up and she got in bed with my mom. So I walked down the hall and I opened the door, and my mother's dead asleep. Excuse the pun, she's not dead, she's alive, but she's asleep, okay? And I said, I see no daughter is in there. And so I'm like, Mommy, yes, I still call my mother Mommy to this day. I said, Mommy, I can't find Natalie. She's like, wait, what? And she gets up, we're running down the steps, we're turning lights on as we go through. We finally get to the family room, and my daughter is sitting on the sofa, staring into nothing. You could do this, she's not responsive. She didn't see anything. It's never happened before, and it hasn't happened since we left that house. So I go over and I shake her to wake her up, because I'm freaking out now. Because up to this point, the things that have been happening in the house have been happening mostly to things, right? Now, something is happening to my child. So she startles awake. She's confused, she's scared, she has no idea what's happening and why it's happening. So we get her back to bed. I don't remember if I slept that night, but I'm sure if I did, it was very fitful, because now I'm really unnerved. My mother, being the smart woman that she is, she, shortly thereafter, leaves to go back to her house. I'm pretty sure if it had been a cardboard box, she'd have gone back to it anyway, because she's like, I'm not staying in this crazy house. So fast forward a few weeks after my mother has left, my daughter and I are about to watch TV. I ask her if she can clean the fireplace out, because we had burned a fire 3 or 4 days ago, and I'd like to keep the ashes cleaned out of the fireplace. And I watched her sweep it up like she would normally do. She tied up the ashes from 3 or 4 days ago, and she puts it in the kitchen garbage can. I watch her do all of this. We watch TV for a little while, and it's time to go to bed. So she goes upstairs, and as I'm walking through the living room, I look out the front window, and I notice that all of the neighbors' garbage cans are on the curb, and I'm like, crap, it's garbage night, and I completely forgot to take out the garbage. So I go back into the kitchen, and I reach into the garbage can to pick out the plastic bag. The plastic bag is engulfed in flames. I haven't smelled smoke. I haven't smelled burning plastic. So now I've got this flaming garbage bag. I drop it on the floor, so now the floor's on fire, and I'm trying to put this fire out, and I'm panicking. I was able to get the fire out, but I think to myself, okay, clearly we did not take the hint. The house has now escalated things, and it is literally trying to kill us. We were going to sell the house and move on with our lives because we knew our marriage wasn't going to work. But now I know we got to get the hell out of here. And now. So we were able to sell the house. And as I was preparing for this story, I wanted to do some fact checking, because when things happen and they're traumatic, you sometimes can misremember things. And I don't want to be up here saying stuff and somebody calls me up like, you made that story up. That's not what happened, right? So I called up people who had experienced things. I called my mother and I said, hey, Ma, you remember? Yeah, sometimes I call her Ma too if I'm not calling her Mommy. And I was like, hey, Ma, do you remember when we stayed in the house and you were there? Do you remember any strange things happening? And she's like, oh, yeah, that night that Natalie was sleepwalking or whatever. And I was like, okay, so that actually happened. Cool, good. I call up my daughter and I said, babe, you remember, I know you were little, but do you remember any strange things happening at this house? And she said she didn't remember sleepwalking, but she said she would be in her room and she had this rocking chair that her grandmother, not my mother, but her other grandmother had gotten for her. And it was custom made, and it was heavy. It was made out of solid wood. It doesn't move without somebody moving it. And she said, I'd be in bed, and my rocking chair would just start rocking. She said, and also, I walked in your room one day, and I saw 3 ghosts. It was a woman and 2 children, and they were all crying. I'm getting goosebumps just telling the story again. So then I called my ex-husband. He and I are great. We make better friends than we made spouses. So we're good friends. I called him and I said, hey, do you remember anything that happened when we lived over at this house? And he said, oh yeah, he listed all the things that I remembered. And then he said, but you know, there's something else that happened that I haven't ever told anybody until what I'm about to tell you right now. And I'm like, oh crap, what could this be? He said, you know, I used to hear voices telling me to commit violent acts against you. Now, mind you, he never, ever did anything. I don't want anybody to be like, oh, he was abusive. He didn't listen to those voices. But what if he had? What if I hadn't checked on my daughter? What if I hadn't realized it was garbage night? What if? Thank you.
One more time for Arlene Koth. That's great. Folks, before we bring out our final storyteller tonight, we want to announce the winners of the mask contest. I think Ramona's going to come out and say some names or numbers that are on the back of your bags, and Marta's going to run around the audience and hand out some prizes if you'll identify yourself. Maybe, I know this is spontaneous and we didn't plan this, but if we get the house lights briefly while we do this, that would be awesome. Take it away.
Oh, awesome. Thanks, David. Oh, I'm short. Sorry. All right, so you guys were like freaking awesome. And Marta and I walked around during intermission and tried to look for the best masks, and you freaking delivered. I have to tell you that up until 2 seconds ago, we had agreement on who was the winner, but who is number 25? Who is this kid? Who is number 25? All right, dude, you need to stand up. Can we give him a round of applause? What is your name? What's your name? Your name is Saul? Denali? All right, can you show them your mask? Could you put it on for me, please? Because he did the back. He did the front. He made me cry. I mean, it was so in the spirit of Saul Steinberg. Like seriously, like check out this mask. Like first place winner, I'm sorry, needs to go to Denali. And Denali, I have to tell you, David doesn't know we're doing this because we changed this like 2 seconds ago, but like you and whoever you want to bring has like season tickets to this season. I'm sorry. Yeah, like give a round of applause to Denali. Thank you so much for impressing us with your wonderful mask. I mean, it was just so cool. And let's see, who is number 19? Oh, shut up. Okay, can we have number 19 stand up and show us your mask? She actually was one of the first people to start this mask. And I don't know, what's your name? Kate. Faith. To have faith in this mask, because this mask is super detail oriented. Can we give a round of applause to Faith? Because look at this mask. It has like Frankenstein, like trim. It's like crazy. So Faith, we are going to give you like second place. We're actually going to get a thing, not just tickets. But Marta is here to give you a gift certificate, $10 gift certificate to So to Mash Roots in College Hill. So we hope that you enjoy that. Thank you so much for participating. Who's number 4? Who is number 4? Who is it has a 4 on your mask? Stand up, would you? Oh my God, show us your mask. I can't even take it. Look at this guy, darn. What is happening? He's got ears, he's got a tongue. Marta and I were struggling for number 1. Thank you so much for producing. Wait, turn around, show the people in the back. It is so awesome. Marta, are you finding him? So we have a $10 gift certificate to Kroger for you. Maybe it will help you in your Thanksgiving or holiday plans. So thank you so much. What is your name? Jeremy has gotten tied for first place with Faith. So we couldn't really decide, I'm sorry. But I have to tell you that 17 and 30, would you please stand up, please? 17 and 30, I know, we have like 6 runner-ups, like seriously. 17 and 30, please, oh my God. Like 17 and 30, please put on your masks and show us. Like, shut up. Do you think that we not have 17? I'm sorry, thank you. 17 and, do we have another one, Marta? Did I screw this up? 17, like, oh my God, we were so impressed by you. We are gonna give you some yummy, like Halloween, either candy or lights. Seriously, like right here, over here. What's your name? Doug? Tom. Fred. Tom Fred. He has a split personality because he did the back and the front of his mask. So we were so excited to like give you a little bit of a prize. And then 9, was it 9? Hey. Who's 9? Oh my God, Daniel! Oh my God. So you get like the last actual prize because honestly 30 was really, really super cool until we discovered that he's on our board. So right there, Daniel gets a prize right there. Some Halloween candy if you haven't shopped for your Halloween things. But let me tell you, oh my God, 30, like Ford, seriously, you're on our board. You can't win a prize, I'm sorry. But we really loved it. So thank you very much for letting me take the time to interrupt, the usual programming. But thank you all of you people who just we couldn't decide. I'm sorry, but you were awesome. Mwah, happy Halloween.
Thank you, everybody, for participating, and Ramona and Marta and Chris Thalgett, who's not even on our board but came to help out tonight. Thank you so much for organizing that whole thing, putting it together, and making it work. I think that was a lot of fun. Glad to give away some prizes tonight. Folks, our final story, we can have the lights again back, thanks. Our final story tonight also comes with a bit of a trigger warning. By the strict definition of the word, I suppose the word violence cannot be applied, but I feel like he was the victim of a violent act. It's definitely very heinous, and he wants you to know that he may get emotional while he's telling this story, but he is okay. He is also the very proud father of 2 beautiful young girls and a handsome son, and I am tickled because I actually met him on this stage. He was playing music for a Moth main stage show that came through town that I was fortunate enough to be invited to tell a story at. And we then invited him to play for several True Theater shows after that, and he did, including tonight's. Preston Bell Charles III.
Hello, and happy True Nightmare today. Yeah, it's my first time telling the story, so. The year was 1998. I was 16 years old, freshman at the wonderful Walnut Hills High School, Blue and Gold Social Matsumum, for those that know what that is. And we were all, I just remember it was a typical day, sometime in the fall, going close to winter. We all had our bubble coats and things like that. And we were just meeting in this little general area where we can all disperse for class in time just when the first bell rang. And on this particular day, one of my friends, who actually had a girlfriend, his girlfriend runs up to me, Preston, I have great news. And I'm just like, okay, what kind of news could this be? And she's like, I want to hook you up with somebody. And if you don't know what that means, back in the day, in the 80s, 90s, well, we're in the 90s at that point, you didn't really need to know anybody. I guess that's like how blind dating worked as a young child. Somebody else just match-made you with somebody and you just said yes, and you see what happens after that. And this is my first time. I'm like, wow, somebody's digging me? Oh, okay. So I'm like, okay, yeah, I think it's cool. So this beautiful young lady comes in, and I'm like, wait, I kind of recognize you. You're in this class that I'm the teacher's assistant for. Now, I'm in the 9th grade, but I was a really nerdy kid at Walnut Hills. So, you know, my ideal of study hall and hanging out with my English teacher in 8th grade, who was an elderly woman. I would help her carry her groceries from her car and just assist in grading tests. That was awesome for me. I thought I was going to be a writer when I got older. So I was like, she was in one of the classes, so I guess that's how she noticed me. But to blend those things together, we end up holding hands, looking into each other's eyes, and at that moment, we were boyfriend and girlfriend. So time goes on. I'm thinking, like, I want to be this nice chivalry-type boyfriend. I come from a very conservative Christian household, so my parents could not know that I was dating. I did not know what dating was. I couldn't leave my house without permission, and even with permission, I couldn't leave my house. So our relationship was very innocent. We would pass notes. We would try to alter our way from class to class to try to run into one another. And eventually, I became a little bit more brazen. It's like, oh, let me give you a peck on the cheek. Let's let other people know that this is a thing. Since I have this study hall structure and I'm understanding ways I can weevil in and out of the vision of our authoritarian figures, I could figure out how to have your lunch and my lunch. So I started doing these things, and it was going on for about a good month or two, which is a long-term relationship for some teenagers. And I remember the biggest thing that I was like, all right, I'm really going to show this girl that I like her. I'm going to catch her bus to her bus stop on the way home, but get right back on the bus. You know, there was no like, oh, my parents are not going to notice that I'm not home within the bus time, but I studied the bus routes of Cincinnati, and I was like, wait, my bus card works on every bus. So I creatively snuck onto her bus. Nobody noticed. It's just a kid riding the metro, sweating, going to a part of town I've never seen before. And we get off the bus, we talk for about 5 or 6 seconds, and then I hear another bus coming up the road. And I knew that was, at that moment, it's either get out of here, now, get back on the bus, everything went well, run across the street. So this embraced me a little bit more. I'm like, okay, I did something outside of the parameters of what I thought was possible. Let's take it to the next level. So I devised a plan of how we can both skip class, and I'm going to teach her how to process photos. I was one of the lucky kids at the school to be allowed to be in a photography class, which is usually saved for juniors and seniors, but, you know, as I said, I was pretty nerdy, so that was another, you know, interest I had. I loved Ansel Adams and all those other greats. So I'm like, I'm going to show her how to just produce some film. It should be romantic. I've seen this on Boy Meets World in some episode, and I think that's how it works. So the plan is going well, but I'm skipping Latin class, and if you don't know, at Walnut Hills, Latin is very serious. But I'd never gotten in trouble, so I'm just like, one time it should be okay. And then I also planned it around my parents' first time of going on a vacation. See, I'm the oldest of 5 brothers and sisters, so my parents never really left us out of sight. You know, we have a wide range between our ages. And for the first time, they were going to Jamaica, so I felt an extra sense of freedom, like, wow, all right. No parents, just this mother, which is like a nun-type figure, but not in the Catholic sense, is from the church watching us. It should be okay. She doesn't know what's going on in today's world. So we go through with this plan. We're nervous. It's the dark room, just to paint the pictures, in this actual art room. You know, there's 30 to 40 kids right outside of it. The teacher's teaching the classroom, so it's not like that hidden. But I knew that once we went inside of the dark room, you turn on a little light, and there's a light that comes on outside the door that says you can't open the dark room. If you don't know, the old way of doing film, you had to do it in complete darkness initially. You had to take this film out of this canister, you're kind of feeling around, putting in this chemical, shaking it up, letting time go by, then you could turn on the red light. So we're there. I go through those basic procedures. I remember at that time, we were getting close to processing the film, and I'm showing this enlarging camera, like how you can zoom in on a little portion, or change the granular, and we produce one thing of film under the red light. And she's all excited, and my reward is a kiss. So, but we're in this sense of privacy. I'm like, wow, my hormones are rushing. I guess her hormones are rushing. I didn't even know what hormones were at that time. Sex ed was not until like 10th grade. And, we start fondling, or what they called necking back then. That was in the rule book. You weren't allowed to do that. But we were, kissing on each other's necks, probably giving hickeys or whatnot. And I remember she had on this like overalls, like those denim overalls we used to all think we were cool in. And she unstraps one. I'm just like, gosh, oh my gosh. Like, what is this? Like, and, looking back at it, today's world is like, okay, we didn't plan this. Like, is everything okay? You have that kind of communication. But at that time, I'm just like, wow, this is really happening. I didn't even think that. It was just things were unfolding in the heat of the moment. So we're holding each other, we're kissing, we're fondling, I'm touching. I'm like, wow, this is all new. I don't even know where I'm going. But I guess she knew a little bit more, or we both co-led each other to the next step. So I remember gravity pulling us down towards the ground. Apologize. And at this moment, while we're kind of like rolling around in this 1 yard space, one of us kicked this stand. And the stand had these heavy metal glass type objects, and it made this loud crash. Our hearts stopped, the world stopped. I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm screwed. First time I'm like, I shouldn't have been doing this. They say this is bad in church. All of these things are like coming in my mind. I'm just like, this is happening. The teacher knocks on the door. Worst situations, like, oh my gosh, my parents are about to find out now. I'm about to get in trouble. I don't even know what's gonna happen. This is so bad. Then the teacher just says calmly, hey guys, is everything all right? And when you're a teenager, your voice cracks. Yeah, we're fine. We just knocked something over, And, we actually, at that point, it killed whatever the mood was. We get ourselves back to composure. She straightens out her hair. I did not have this hair at this time, so I didn't have to do that. And, we proceed out of the classroom. The bell rings. Nobody's the wiser. We know what happened. It was to me, my biggest moment, probably both of our biggest moment at that time. And we kiss after we leave the classroom, and we go about our way. So it's like, okay, this happened, I escaped danger, but I'm not trying that again. So one day goes by. I go meet her in my typical spot. She's not there. Yeah, okay, kids don't come to school sometimes. Second day, she's not there. Third day, she's not there. And I knew she was, adopted or whatever. It didn't really mean that much to me, but, I remember going to her neighborhood, like maybe things were a little rougher, so I started asking her friends, like, what might have happened, or where is she? Nobody knew. You can't call somebody's house without permission. That was like against the rules back in the day. There were no cell phones. So, the next day, I'm in orchestra class. Favorite class of all time. 80 students. And before class was able to fully begin, we had just tuned up, sat next to my stand partner. And one of the security guards, he comes down the stairs. He looks like the guy from Matlock, has this trench coat, thick glasses, old guy. Actually, his name was Mr. Grady. And, there's older kids in the class that goof off and do other things, but we're orchestra kids. There's not much trouble that we get into. So I remember he called my name. And I was so scared. I was like, gosh, I've never been in trouble. This is what this is like. This is not good. My parents are on vacation. They found out that I skipped Latin class. My plan was not that good. So I just get up, thinking that it's going to be nothing. And I remember when he looked at me, he said, no, you need to grab your things. And it might be hard to paint that picture, but in high school, you know what that means. It's like, wait, so I'm not coming right back to class. So I pack up my violin, I grab my backpack, winter coat, and I head up to the administrator's office. I remember seeing one of the kids that was always getting in trouble in school. He's sitting right there. And the other thing I remember was the secretary, but 2 police officers in the assistant principal's office. Now, in my brain, I didn't think they were there for me. Again, because I saw this kid that I knew, and I'm just like, gosh, what did he do? And some time goes by, and then all of a sudden, I get called into the office, and the officers don't leave. So, I can't even remember the assistant principal's name. He was kind of new to the school. And he said, son, we're not gonna candy coat this. Do you know this young lady? I'm not gonna say her name, but you know. And I said, yeah, that's my girlfriend. He's like, okay. And he's like, do you know what rape is? And I said, yeah. They pauses for a moment. And then he says, the scariest thing I ever heard. Well, son, this girlfriend of yours said that you raped her at school. My heart fell. I was so scared because my parents were gone. I mean, they were out of the country. I had no one to call, thinking that the school was going to protect me. You know, I'm a minor, but no. And this is the second to last bell. All of these things were happening so fast. So they questioned me, and then I hear the final bell ring. And I remember asking, because I knew I was going to be arrested. They told me this thing. And they had put the handcuffs on me, and I begged. I was like, would you please just wait till everybody leaves school? But they didn't. So they marched me out of the school like a criminal. My face was not covered. I was handcuffed, shackled, and sat into a Cincinnati police officer cruiser in front of everybody. And so I went from being this nerdy nobody violin kid to, wow, who's this kid that just got arrested at school? So they take me down to District 1, which is just behind Music Hall. I get taken to the back of the building. I remember seeing a special door that said Special Victims Unit, being walked into an interrogation room. Still, you know, no lawyer, no parent, no anybody. And then I'm sat in this room, and I remember the detective coming in. And the next scariest thing I'd ever heard came out of his mouth. He's like, wow, this is an interesting situation you have here. You know, I have a daughter your girlfriend's age. And I was smart enough to understand what that meant. So they were already thinking I was guilty. And I remember at that time, my mother had always told me, because again, we came from a strong church household, the truth shall set you free. And at that moment, I remember my mother's voice coming in my mind. I was glad that I listened. As embarrassing as it was, as vulnerable as I was, I kept telling the truth. I told them what happened. Most intimate details I'd ever share with a human being at this point. After some hours of interrogation, I knew it was hours because it was definitely in the middle of the night by the time an evangelist from the church showed up. She took me home. They prayed for me. Then I had the next level of shame of looking my siblings in the eye as being the first family member ever arrested. I just felt like dirt. You know, my parents worked so hard for me to avoid this path, and because of my own ignorance, I put myself in this situation. And it's my word versus hers. She was very fair-skinned too, so that definitely didn't help. The day goes by. My parents take an emergency flight back from Jamaica. Still no news. I'm ready to go back to school. My parents call, see what's going on. They tell me that I'm suspended for skipping class. 3-day suspension. First time ever suspended. Day 2 goes by. Still no word from the police. No word from the school. Day 3 goes by. No word from the school. No word from the police. On that 4th day, my parents call. They're a little bit more irate, like, come on, you know, tell us something. And they said, and I don't even know if it was the school or the police, but they said they had gotten a report back. They had taken her to the hospital to do a rape kit test. And when they were administering the test, they had discovered that her hymen was still intact. And I didn't even know what that meant. I'm like, okay, well. And they were like, well, her story was so graphic and horrifying and violent that there had been no way on her testimony that she could have done those things. So she just lied. And still to this day, I still don't understand why. When I got back to school, I didn't even want to go back to school. I had thoughts of suicide. Didn't think I could ever look at a woman again. I didn't trust anybody. And that was against my heart. And I remember begging my parents, like, don't let me go back to that school. I'll go to any school, it just doesn't matter. But I still think to this day, they made me face my fears. Remember getting on the bus, feeling the eyes watching me. Thinking, like, who's going to ask the first silly question to make this first, bad day? And I go to my typical spot where my friends usually meet up. And my best friends that are still my best friends to this day. They asked me what happened. And I was able to tell them the truth. And they spread the word on my behalf. And my life was able to still go on. Finished out the rest of the school year. They changed our classes around. I couldn't be a teacher's assistant anymore. It went from being unpopular and not known to now everybody knows my name. And that's how that kind of all started. But, yeah, I never got the answer from the school, from anybody, why it had to happen that way. Why me? I don't believe in hurting people. And if I would have done anything, lost my virginity that day, anything, I wouldn't be playing the violin in front of you today. I would not have had children. I think my heart would have been in a way darker place. Thank you.
Keep it going for Preston. Thank you. In the wake of the murder of George Floyd during this pandemic period, Preston posted that story on his Facebook page, and I specifically invited him to share that story here tonight, and very grateful that he did. Folks, that's our show. One more time for all our storytellers. Preston and Arlene and Julie and Dan and Scott. Memorial Hall, our photographer Jeff, our friends at Norris Media, Annette behind the scenes, and all these people you see up here on the screen. It really does take a village. Folks, we're back here January 27th for True Dad, and we hope to see you then, maybe right after the show, but whether we see you after the show or in January, until we see you again, be true. Good night.